My name is Khaled Sabsabi. I'm showing two works at the Sydney Pavilion, Shanghai Biennale, with 4A, one titled Mush and the other titled Syria, both made in 2012. I'll just go briefly into each work. The first work is titled Mush, and that's a 5-channel video work. It's a object installation video piece, and the work in its sort of, most basic sort of form, it's images that I've collected over the past since 2006, maybe, no, probably 2004, and from my travels from North Africa and the Arab world right through to Turkey and inland as well. But it's also images that I've collected of, religious ceremonies, images of the everyday, images of architecture, everyday life, and this sort of thing. And the idea of, having this sort of cube or working towards this thing of infinity, and the idea of constructed, or illusions of infinity, and just exploring what is that. Whether, you're looking at this cube, it's levitating, it seems like it's not attached to anything, it's floating, and within it, on each, surface, or you have a point of an infinite point as you go into the images. But we know that it's not an infinite point, but it's about this illusion, creating this illusions of infinity, and of course there's layers within that. On the other side of that work, there's an 8-pointed star, which starts off with two squares, one moving clockwise, one moving counterclockwise, to form a figure 8 projection for a brief, time, and then it goes out again to come back to the 4 points. And the 8-pointed stars is really significant. So with Mush, the idea of images and spaces collapsing, or the idea of the physical collapsing and almost blending away and folding away and being cut away and formulated away into a point where you're reaching out into infinity, or creating that illusion of infinity, is, in a sense, comes from the influence of, Sufi learning and teachings and wisdom. And the idea behind this for Sufis is for someone to be able to understand the essence of the spirituality or the heart. Everything around them in their physical environment, even their physical being, needs to be deconstructed, meaning this thing of ownership. They've got to de-own everything, in the sense, and that's only when they get to a point which is extremely difficult for any person to do. But this is the point where is on that threshold, or on that point where people can start to even comprehend or question this idea of essence and the spirituality. Along with the Mush cube piece, there's the 8-pointed star projection, which is really 2 projections over each other, as I said before, being 2 squares that are 4 points that turn clockwise and counterclockwise to form an 8-pointed star. The number 8 has a lot of significance with various cultures, ancient cultures, and this is shared across many lands and peoples and cultures. The 8 is for Sufis is a number. It's the perfect number. It's the number for completion, and for me that work, although the images are you can't really make out what the images are in that, but it's actually women in a ceremony. If you go back to some Aboriginal cultures as well here in Australia, the number 8 is the number for women as well. So I'm also interested in the way, you know, ancient cultures, you know, share similar knowledges or knowledge and learning, and this is something that is really relevant, I think, and something that is quite beneficial, not just for us today living, but I think for future generations, and information that needs to be sort of gathered. Yeah, I think for me the work Mush itself, yeah, it represents, you know, there's various layers in that work. I mean, first of all, the word, you know, the titling Mush is quite loaded. We associate that with, you know, as in, you know, driving dogs and driving for change, you know, like you know, a sled being pulled by dogs across, you know, the snow or whatever, or mules pulling a cart, or, you know, something that is quite violent, that is, you know, main to achieve an outcome. But also mush is, you know, it's a matter of, you know, putting vegetables together and mushing them up, you know, and feeding them to the sick who are unable to chew their food. So, you know, this forced digestion system that happens as well. But also that's how I feel about the idea of change as well, in the sense that forced change. I think change is something that is happening regardless of whether we want to change or we want to push for change. Change is happening continuously on everything, and everything is connected in the broader, you know, scheme of things. And this is evident in everything that we do. So if you are to squash an ant as you're walking, you know, therefore the reaction of squashing the ant means that there is one less ant in that colony of ants. It means that, you know, somewhere something has got to give, and then that ripple effect continues on and on and on and on and on and so on. So this idea of connection is about blurring. It's really about blurring this idea of identity, because whether you see this thing as, yes, you know, I'm not saying that this idea of cultural difference doesn't exist. Yes, it exists, and you'll be naive not to think that it exists. You'll be naive not to think that, you know, class doesn't exist either, and the hierarchy within that as well. But in essence, you know, what I feel this work is about, yes, taking all these, you know, real physical things that we see, but I think what this work is about blurring all those. What if, you know, what if everything can be blurred to the point where you can't distinguish anymore Western Sydney or Central Sydney between, you know, Central Beirut or Central Damascus or Central Aleppo, you know? This is what this work is about, really. It's about moving beyond this sort of physical thing that preoccupies us all, you know? And the only way to do it is to collapse those images and to blur that idea of this, you know, this difference. So that's one component of that work as well. So we'll move on to Syria, if you like, the work Syria. Syria is a new work. It hasn't been shown before. People will think, okay, why is this Syria? You know, people will walk in and, you know, think, oh yes, this artist is making or taking advantage of the idea that, you know, atrocities are happening in Syria and instability is going on and change across the Arab world and Arab Spring and so on and so on. But no, it's not about that, because if you believe that, then pretty much you believe the hype, you believe everything. And the work is not about that. The work is, it's an attempt to look at the routine, to look at the day. The images are just day-to-day happenings that I've shot over the few years visiting Syria. And what I saw, okay, was a country that had sanctions on it for 30 plus years, and I saw a people that were self-reliant. I saw people that were, Khalil Gibran, the poet, wrote a poem, Pity the Nation, Pity the Nation. And he was a Lebanese poet that was pretty much forced to leave his home in Lebanon when he was 9 years old by the church to travel to America, and became a male prostitute for most of his life. But Pity the Nation, that's an important poem, because in this he speaks about the nation that does not harvest what it eats. And I think this is it's so relevant now, and it's something that we as people will have to come to grips with, in a few years' time, because it is a nation that doesn't eat what it harvests, is something that is of great loss, and it will cause a lot of pain. But what I found in Syria, is people that were really resilient, that were really strong, and that were really self-reliant, that were able to produce and make things, and have a level of life which was, they didn't need to have Nike. They had Mikey, They didn't need to have Adidas. They had Abadas, And just this on its own. I mean, having an alternate, because at the same, now it's like we're all on this one freeway, with a no stopping or no. So yeah, this is what the work is about, and it sort of kaleidoscopes and folds in and generates into this sort of beautiful Islamic looking al-Hamra architecture, So that's what the work is.